Welcome to the Pet Biz Project. Today we're excited to bring you an inspiring conversation with Dr. Roz, the visionary founder of Australian Pet Nutrition. With over 15 years of experience as a registered veterinary nurse, certified dog trainer and animal naturopath, Dr. Roz has made it her mission to disrupt the pet nutrition industry. Her journey began with frustrations over limited, low transparency options for her own pets, leading her to create Australian Pet Nutrition with a focus on high-quality, holistic solutions that truly serve dogs and cats' health needs. In this episode, Dr. Roz dives into the story of building Australian Pet Nutrition from the ground up, the challenges she faced creating a brand centred on ethically sourced, whole food nutrition, and why she believes in empowering pet owners to make informed choices. We discuss APN's commitment to both pet health and the wealth of animals in the supply chain, and the unique approach Dr. Roz takes to educating both her customers and her wholesale partners. Whether you're a pet owner or an entrepreneur in the pet industry, this episode is packed with insights about the power of transparency, the impact of nutrition, and the importance of standing by your values. So stay tuned, as there's heaps to learn from Dr. Roz's journey and dedication to redefining pet wellness. Hi Roz, thanks so much for joining us today on the Pet Biz Project. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm pretty excited to come on and chat.
Fantastic. So, first of all, obviously, I want you to tell everybody about your business, but your product range, what you do, but more importantly, what brought you to the point of actually developing Australian Pet Nutrition in the first place?
Yeah, so before Australian Pet Nutrition came to fruition, I was running my own mobile pet health business and working alongside vet clinics, and we still do that today. But when I was doing that holistic consultations and working with vets, I found that I was constantly reviewing pre-made pet diets and tweaking them to be more appropriate for pets. And also we were relying on our own ability to access like practitioner herbal medication. There was nothing really freely accessible for the types of conditions that we were seeing. So skin and pain mobility type cases. And it got to a point where I just became really frustrated around the lack of transparency, the lack of quality, and the fact that we were having to get people to, change their own food that they were already buying pre-made for convenience. So we decided to start our own. And that's kind of how it came about.
Great. And so what was the thing that led you to that point though? Like you'd been working as a vet nurse for a while, is that right?
Yeah, and a naturopath and a homeopath. And I've been on the other side of it. So it all started because I was a frustrated pet owner, and I had the resources in terms of my background is in research and academia, and my job was to train people for various professions. And I kind of just set out on a journey because I, like everyone, I say I had like really early midlife crisis in my 20s when I decided to, like everyone, get a dog. And it wasn't like what it was when we were a kid. Maybe I was in some different, time warp, or just my age. I wasn't aware of what it was like to actually, be solely responsible for a pet that had all these problems. So, and I just wasn't getting the answers, and I didn't feel like if I wasn't getting the answers and I felt like I was asking the right questions, how did everyone else feel, and what information were they being given and taking as, the only option? So I decided, I kind of took the mentality, if you can't beat them, join them. And I went and, qualified in as much as I could to try and see what things were like from the inside. And that wasn't necessarily a positive.
The best thing.
That, you see all the things that are wrong. And that's not complaining about the industry, because the only way you can make change and make positive change if you really understand where the struggles are and where there's room for improvement to be made. And that's what Australian Pet Nutrition and what I've been doing, for the past 10 plus years is all about, is trying to make change where change is needed. But those areas where change is needed is not necessarily where everyone wants to go, because it's hard. It involves having hard conversations, and involves educating people in a different way. It involves cost. It involves so much, and it's not for the faint-hearted. And it hasn't been smooth sailing, but that's no matter what business you're in, nothing's smooth sailing. But as we know, they say, working with kids and pets is not the easiest thing, and that's very true. So yeah, that's the biggest thing. Was I don't believe in criticizing something from the outside unless you're willing to, muck in and try and make change. And that's what I'm trying to do. Doesn't mean that I've made heaps of change, but I do think we've made headway. And I see things from the clinical side, but I also am a pet owner. As I told you this morning, I was running around like a mad pet owner this morning with a pet. So I understand both worlds, and it's about walking in both worlds, really, because you can't help pet owners if you're not a pet owner and understand their frustrations. But then I also understand what it's like to be a business owner, a veterinary professional, and the struggles that we face on a daily basis. So
Oh yeah, it's hugely challenging, isn't it? Running your own business. It's just there are so many balls to juggle at all times.
I think that's the thing that I underestimated, is you have to wear so many hats. And there's hats that you get up every morning and you want to put on those hats, and there's some you're like, I never wanted to do that. Like, why do I have to do that today? And it's not your niche, it's not your area of expertise, so you reluctantly put that hat on, and you know that you're not actually giving that part of your business its all. And then the hats that you do want to wear, you're not giving them their all because you've just got too many things going on.
Yeah. And the thing I love about your business is you're not just about selling products. You're not just about getting out there and like, okay, buy this, buy this, buy this all the time. You have the whole services side to supporting pet parents and educating professionals as well.
100%. And I think when people ring us up and ask for support and what products they should buy, and sometimes I'm like, nothing. You don't need to buy anything, because it's not always about, swapping a pharmaceutical for something natural. If your dog or cat doesn't need it at that point in time, then there's no need for it. But I do feel like we've created this reality that's no different to the pharmaceutical industry, that if your pet has a symptom, then we need to give them a herb as a preventative. But if they don't have a heart problem, why are we giving them, things specific for that, as an example? So a lot of the time people call us, and yeah, we push them more down, the service side rather than trying to sell them. That's to me a real point of difference for us, in that, yeah, okay, sometimes we turn down sales, but if you don't need it, I don't believe that that's, the right ethical thing to do. And if there's a better option for your pet, that's what we're about creating, is finding that better option, or connecting you with someone in your area that is going to give you the outcome that's actually needed.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's that abundance mindset, isn't it? It's like you don't need the sale necessarily from that customer. You need to be providing them with solutions, and that might not be the product. But they'll then go and tell, 20 people about the amazing support that you gave them. And that's where the sales may come from. So, like it's just that ripple effect. And you focus on the diet as well, don't you? Not just on, and, providing food for dogs as well as the nutraceuticals, don't you?
Yeah, we do. I always say everything starts with nutrition, which is why we didn't just start like a nutraceutical arm to the business. I was adamant that we had to have both. And obviously our food isn't available Australia-wide at this point in time, but it gives it, we cover the Northern Territory, and I think that's a fantastic start. So we always start with that, and we also acknowledge that our food isn't for everyone too. So we do work quite closely on cases with vets where custom food is required, and then we go and create that. So we're not just following that model of, one size fits all, we're a small batch company, but also we'll talk to owners, we'll ask to see the blood results, we'll liaise with vets, and we will create, in some cases, custom food as well. And we've had really good success with that, but it's also had reach beyond the Northern Territory, because some of those cases have been like severe clinical cases that have been referred to specialists all over the world, and they've gone, oh my God, you changed this with food and some herbs, you got to write this case up. So it's also been a win for vets to see this alternative way of doing things as well.
Yeah, I think it's like we've all come to understand that we're all unique and that one size doesn't fit everybody or one solution doesn't fit everybody in terms of us humans. But I think we're all starting to understand that with our dogs as well. You know, some are further ahead on the journey than others, but it's, I think, just understanding that our dogs are unique as well and have different needs.
And that's we were talking, you mentioned like mindset before. It's also like there's a lot of mindset change that needs to happen in the industry, and that actually comes from a welfare perspective. You know, there's still states, we're one, that doesn't recognize animals as sentient beings, that meaning they're, you know, thinking, feeling beings. So if we don't see that from a like a legislative standpoint, how can we educate people around how animals are and how unique they are, and their unique needs means they have different needs to other animals or to the next door neighbor's dog or cat or whatever it is. So there's a lot to it, and as you know, I'm very passionate about the welfare side of things, because that feeds into everything. It's not that just we're working with animals and we respect animals, but we're part of a supply chain that is dealing with animals that have to be slaughtered. That's just the reality of it. So making sure that we source ethically, you know, to then feed ethically and responsibly, you know, is important to us. So I'm also big about educating people on the supply chain, because as an end consumer, that's most of the time what people are concerned about. They just want a product, and that's totally fine. But sometimes understanding a few other parts of the supply chain also helps not only understand what it is that we're trying to do, but if you go and make choices down the track, you've got an understanding of what your choices do and things like that.
Yeah, it's that impact that you're having wider than just your local home or, you know, even community. It's that ripple effect out into, you know, the supply chain of everything. I was talking to Diana Scott from Frontier Pets. You know, she's on a mission to end factory farming, and that it's just mind blowing when you do start to look down the supply chain of things, like the decisions that we can easily be making in our purchasing choices that can be having a massive effect on the welfare of animals widespread around Australia. It's just unbelievable.
It is, and it's big decisions that we have to make as business owners. Like I have had to, and I made this decision early on, but I've made a decision about the scalability of the raw food side of the business, because there's a point where you're scaling means you would have to enter purchasing factory farmed animals, and we aren't willing to do that. So we have to be willing to work within where our values and ethics sit as a business. And you know, that's hard, because as a business you want to grow, but you also have to really stay true to your values and your beliefs, because otherwise you lose your business and you're not what you set out to be. And that in particular, when you're dealing with food and animals, is really challenging, you know. But also when you're sourcing nutraceuticals, and some of these herbs are, you know, rare and they've been over farmed as well, that plays into herbs as well. So whenever you're dealing with something that involves, you know, growing, it's challenging to work out, you know, am I being ethical and sustainable in the decisions that I make when, you know, everyone else is purchasing as well. So it's a tricky one to gauge.
And you must spend so much time researching as well, mustn't you, with all the product development and, you know, ensuring that you're sourcing things ethically and sustainably and things like that. There must be huge research involved.
I spent a lot of time, and I think like our suppliers get a little frustrated with me at times when I give them what seems like the third degree, and I ask them a lot. You know, I ask them down to, you know, understanding like the slaughter process, and, you know, where are the animals coming from? You know, what are they fed before they come into the abattoir? You know, what are your rules and regulations? And they just kind of look at me, and I'm like, but it's important for us to understand, because there's absolutely, at this point in time, there is no transparency in the pet industry. And this is how we start getting transparency, by educating people on the supply chain. So yeah, I do spend a lot of time doing it, but it's also what I'm passionate about. That's what my background is in research. So that's a hat I like wearing. That doesn't mean it's an easy hat to wear, because science evolves. Nothing's static when it comes to science and research. So, I'm constantly going, yeah, we only released that product 12 months ago, but already I've, seen lots of research and lots of promising studies on this. Should we add it in? No, that kind of decision-making process is challenging. But that's why research is fun, because we should never just hone in on one fact or one study. We really need to be looking at multiple studies and, how's that evolved over a 10, 20-year period, and then make our decisions based on that. That's getting really nerdy, I know, but you'll learn to love my
No,
nerd.
we like getting nerdy here, so that's good. We're all nerdy when it comes to running a business as well, aren't we? It's
Yeah.
like, yeah. Oh, fantastic. And so what have you thought about, like, what is the actual impact, long-term impact you want to have in the world with your business?
Yeah, so like I said, we have like clear goals around where we'd like to scale each aspect to, but a big part of that for me is education. Obviously, before I decided to delve into the pet health industry, my background was in education and research, and I'm good at it. Um, and I'd like to then take all this new knowledge plus my skills from my previous life and really, grow the education side of it, but grow it where I'm not just telling people, hey, you should believe what I say. That really irks me. I want to develop a world of critically thinking pet parents who are, really confident in their decision-making process for their own pets. It's almost like they're their own pet doctor.
Yeah, being an advocate for their pet.
Yeah, and can justify why they're thinking about their pet's health is the way it is, rather than just saying, oh, I heard it from so and so, and they're an influencer. That's fantastic, but I want to develop these critically thinking pet parents who are really empowered and understand why they believe what they believe. And it's not because they believe what I believe, because what I believe should be very different to what you believe. But how to assess the information and make the right decision, or what we believe is the right decision, because there's never always one way to do something.
No, and it's also where you're at on the journey as well, isn't it? Sometimes you're not ready to hear certain things as a pet parent, like you've only got a certain level of understanding at the time, but then maybe a year or two later, you have a much deeper understanding, and you're ready to hear more information. I suppose it's all about really empowering pet parents to feel like they're confident in asking questions and drilling into the detail a bit more.
Yeah, and you can be at a moment in your pet's health where it's a lot to handle, just being with them on a daily basis. So then going searching and trying to make decisions is not where you're at right now. But you've got that sort of breathing space, like you said, a little bit of time down the track. And I always say, 4, 5, 6 dogs down the track, they'll be perfect. But everyone's a learning. We learn something different from every animal that we come across. Every case that I see, it's it's never again, this is never static. It's always changing. We can't make the right decision ever. It's always got to be a learning experience.
And did you always set out to have sort of products and solutions for cats and dogs, or did it start with sort of just one first and then expand into the other?
We launched with both from the beginning, and that was always my goal, because I really think cats are left out. I always say that. Someone's like, no, I'm like, when is someone going to ring me about their cat,
Yeah.
And we celebrate in the office. So my admin officer, Alison, she's a crazy cat lady, and we celebrate when people ring us about their cat, because it's like, I know there's so many cats out there, but all we hear about is dogs. And I do think, I really feel for cats. There's most of these cats are inside. They don't get out in nature. They're fed a highly processed diet. Every cat's got, chronic kidney disease or hypothyroidism. So yeah, no, we set out from the beginning to tackle dogs and cats. And I absolutely celebrate when someone contacts me about a cat.
Well, it is growing substantially. I mean, I know for us supporting sort of pet brands with their marketing, we saw like a huge boom with dog ownership over COVID. Like it was just mind blowing how many people were getting multiple dogs in their household. But then since COVID and people have sort of gone back to work and felt pressure to go back to the office, we've seen that sort of boom with cat ownership as well. It's just been huge, which is great, like you say, because I think there are more there's more focus on providing solutions now. We're seeing it coming through more. People are starting to focus more on enrichment for cats as well as dogs, and having that same emotional bond with their cats as they do with their dogs. Whereas in the past, it was a bit more like the cat's just left to look after itself a little bit, sort of thing, self-sufficient almost.
Yeah, we're very passionate about supporting both from the beginning. I mean, people inform me about their chooks and their cattle, but we're sticking to cats and dogs, guys.
Oh, you've got to be able to multitask these days, don't you? And so, being a business owner, I suppose, look, a lot of people listening to this podcast are small to medium business owners. So, from your perspective, I know you cannot be a business owner and not have challenges along the journey. That's what pushes us to grow and to step out of our comfort zone. But have there been any key points for you around, like, memorable points for you in the journey with developing your business, or challenging points that you've overcome?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it comes down to, I was listening to someone recently, I can't remember who they were, but they were talking about really like understanding kind of like your human blueprint, which is kind of like your personality, but understanding how you function as a business owner. I'm not a business owner that will make a decision like that. I'm a bit more philosophical. I like to have all the options in front of me. So sometimes it's really I struggle when I have to make an immediate decision, because that's the researcher in me. I want to have all my options and the studies, and then I'm going to make a really logical, calculated decision. That has been because we sat on this business for 4 years before we launched. So I had all the clinical stuff going, and I had all the recipes written, and then I'd keep going back and going, oh, is that palatable for a dog? Is that palatable for a cat? Is anyone going to buy this? But, you've made this for 5-10 years already, and it works, but, you've got to launch it to the public. And we sat on it for 4 years, and then my husband just said to me, like, for God's sake, Ros, you just need to put
Just got to do this.
and I did. Like, it was one of those things where then I just had to do it. Like, you can't be one of those long decision makers in that point. But that was hard, because then it's all risk. Once you've paid the outlay and things start arriving and you've got to start manufacturing, you're like, the risk has now gone from here to here. And that was hard, but then you have to back yourself. And that was the thing. It's like, well, it's here. I'm not selling this. We're gonna back it. And it was in that point in the manufacturing process. And my husband said to me, he's like, I'm here for the moral support, but like, what is this? He's been part of our raw food and our health journey, and he's a big part of our animal science. He's like, what is all this for? How do I know what would I buy and things like that? And that's when I said, you're onto something here. And that's when I really decided to educate like our wholesalers and things like that. Like, so decision making sort of popped up as we started manufacturing and going, yeah, you're right. Like, how do we actually help people make the right decisions when they can't always talk to me, or they can't always talk to their vet, but we're wanting to sell it in certain shops? How do I know that they're going to talk about the product right, or they're not going to, upsell just for the sake of wanting to get it off their shelf? So it was those kind of things that you go, I'd never even thought of that. But once you're in it, decisions have to be made. And yeah, that was a big one for us. We also really decided that education across every aspect had to permeate.
Fantastic. And your actual brand of your business, the look and feel, the brand identity, was actually quite different to what it is now, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And you could see like that I'd sat on it for 4 years before we launched, because it was like when we launched with that old branding, it was like that was where we were 4 years ago, not where we are now as a launched business.
Yeah.
And I just knew, like, I think it was probably within a few months of launching that I reached out to you, and I was like, it's just not it. Like, in my head, this is what I think we are and what we do and what we look like, but that is not what we're showcasing. And it's hard, it's hard to even log onto the website when I'm not passionate about the look of it. I don't feel like we're communicating.
You don't feel aligned with what it's representing. Yeah.
I underestimated how important that was. And then I was like, well, I can't wear that hat. I cannot go and redo this while we're, focusing on education and development and research and things like that. I have no idea about branding and marketing. I know what I want, but how do we do that? How do we, reconceptualize that and take what's in my head and communicate that to the world? That's hard. That's why we called you.
I know, and that brand that we then created with the tone of voice and the look and the feel that you have now, which is so bright and powerful, and ultimately is that disruptor feel. Did you expect it to turn out that way when we initially started?
Yes and no. Like, we had lots of conversations between like you and Erin around what it meant to be a disruptor. So I'll just caveat that I am not an extrovert. I am an absolute introvert, but over my years, when you have to go and give a lecture to 2,000 students, you have to become quiet. You have to sell what you're teaching. So when we were talking about what it meant to be a disruptor in the industry and what that would look like, in my head, it was way more I would have to be way more disruptive than we actually are. It's just coming to terms with the fact that you're okay to be a little outspoken. We're okay to, push the boundary a little bit. But really, that's what research is. So that's sort of what I came back to go, okay, we can use the term disruptor, but what we're just saying is this is really good science and this is good research, and we're encouraging critical thinking, and that's critical thinking's always been disruptive because it challenges the norms.
Well, and it's a way that you, I suppose, from a marketing perspective, when I'm looking at it, it's a way that you stand out in a crowd. Like I have to say 100% of pet business owners that I speak to are introverts. Like we are that's the nature of quite often the type of person that's inspired by their animals to then go and create solutions for other pet parents. And I think, we're all introverts, but the reality of it is that if you want to get a message out there and you want to actually connect with people and make a difference, you do have to put on this like armor almost and go out there and take on a different personality to be able to deliver that message in a way that people are going to stop and listen. And like you say, I don't think it's about going out there and shocking people or anything like that. It's just about being confident. And that's what I see your brand being. It's just this confidence in the way it's putting itself out there that makes people stop and listen, because you're not shying away and going, oh, maybe I'll just tell you this little bit of information and then quickly run back into my hole. It's like you're going out there and being very clear with your message, which I think that brand, it's just beautiful how it's come together, because it just really does represent that voice that you have.
Yeah, and it's you've done a great job in capturing all aspects of it. Like, it's fun. It's a really fun and it's bright and it's enticing, but it's also, it gets people thinking. And it just makes you stop, and you just stop and stare at it and go, oh, this is interesting. And that's, when I started, we were showing the sample website designed to beta testing or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
What people are like, oh, it's different and it's bright and it's yellow and yellow, like, but they kept coming, oh, let me just look at it again. So, and that's the whole point. We want you to keep coming back, and maybe you'll pick another resource, or maybe you'll read a bit more about some of the science behind the products, and go and do a bit more research yourself. That's what really matters to me, is that you're coming back and looking for information, and we are a point of great information in that pet owner decision making process.
And you've also launched a podcast, haven't you, that sort of allows you to be able to get that voice out there and that education out there in a medium that's really going to be easy for people to connect and listen to.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the raw truth, real health. It's our tagline that we've now got for Australian pet nutrition, but it's not your average podcast. I mean, we've launched softly in the sense that we've got some great guests, but the guests ramp up in the sense that, we're challenging a lot of pet health, pet industry, norms that I just don't think should be norms, around things like lack of transparency, lack of sharing things with pet owners. But so it's a way of educating pet owners. But again, it's not just me talking. We're getting other people in to, question things as well. And people that had a view and then had to question question it as well, and then have completely challenged their belief system. So that's important too, to say it's not just like you go into life with this belief system. It's like things happen, and then we go and dig a bit deeper, and then our values and our beliefs do change based on that. So the podcast is about sharing that, but not just saying dogs should eat bones, like yada yada. We're a bit different in that sense.
And we're seeing it, I mean, again, from a marketing perspective, we're also seeing a lot of vets reaching out to us that are starting to question things a lot more as well from the mainstream education that they've been sort of provided as going through their training, and that they're starting to question things a lot more as well, and developing their solutions that maybe don't fit the mainstream view of things. So I think it's great, getting more people involved. And there is certainly that sort of, I think that's where I don't like social media myself personally. Like, I'm not somebody that sits on social media all the time using it in my personal time. But as a way to get out there and connect with people and share your message, I think it is an amazing way that you can use podcasts and your social to then have that ripple effect on social media as well, to get that message out there. So it's great.
Yeah, and we've seen that we've already started connecting with a different audience, which is what's important. Is we want to try and connect with lots of different audiences to share our knowledge and to share our message. And we've seen that that's been a good way to do that with the podcast. And just some of the guests are interesting. So of course, I know when I pick a podcast, I pick it based on is it an interesting topic, and do I like who's on.
And now, in terms of wholesalers with your business, I know you have like, I see so many pet brands that just think that wholesaling is just sticking a link on the bottom of your footer of your website saying that you can wholesale my products, you can, have them in your retail outlets. But you take it to such another level, don't you, with education and support? Can you tell us about that?
I do. So there's a few levels to it. So we don't just wholesale to anybody. We want to make sure that people who want to stock our products on some level, they don't have to, completely, but on some level align with our views around ethics and welfare of animals. So I'm not going to say allow someone who, isn't particularly kind to animals, but, might own a pet shop stock our brand. That just doesn't sit right for me. So I do like to talk to potential wholesalers, understand what their business is about and how our products are going to benefit their business. But then the other aspect that we do is they all get trained in our products.
Yeah.
So whether that's they have a one-on-one with me, but we also have an online learning platform. So they have more than just, it's a digestive product, so you should give it to dogs with diarrhea. It's not about that. It's about knowing, like, this has these ingredients. So if a dog, a pet owner comes in with this is why you would recommend that or not recommend that. This is this particular herb and it does this, and you shouldn't give it to a dog with this, or a cat with this, or cats don't like this, but you could try this one. So they have an understanding of the products, but also we find them, that improves their sales exponentially, because an owner comes in and they go, I know all about this, I know about the food, I know about what this does. And the customers are just blown away by the knowledge that, the people selling it now have. So that's important to me, that you know what you're selling. Otherwise it's like, oh yeah, this is great. It says it does all this stuff. And we've all been there, where you've come home with a product thinking it does something and it doesn't.
It doesn't, or has the opposite effect.
Yeah, and that happens. I've seen that happen in clinics where it's like, oh, we sell probiotics, but that's not what the dog needed, right? So we didn't want to be that. We didn't want to be that brand, and maybe I chose to want to be that hands-on with it, and then develop like the online training as well. But it's important that a business selling your products, there has to be some sort of relationship there. In the age of where everything's done, and that's been an eye-opener for everything's done via email, there's not a lot of that just getting on the phone and chatting. We've tried to bring that back a little bit, and we've had really good success with that. We don't have a huge wholesaler range, but the relationships that we've built have been fantastic, in the sense that wholesalers will ring me and say, we're going to refer them, not for your products, but refer them for a consultation, because we actually don't think any of your products fit. And I'm like, thank you for not selling our products that don't fit and referring them for tailored support. or, you know, I'm coming to Melbourne, I'm going to visit some of our wholesalers down there. They've advertised a workshop and we're doing a workshop for all their clients. So it's about, you know, it's so much more than just stocking our products. It's this network of education now that we're trying to create.
And that those retail store staff can then sort of, if they have questions that they don't know how to answer, they can come back to you for further support and training to sort of understand.
100%. So what often happens is like the store owner or the store manager just compiles like a list of questions, and then I'll often just, you know, record a video and answer those questions, and then that becomes part of the resources for every wholesaler, because usually if one person's got those questions, everyone does. So it's on that platform and they can access that. And now it's on our website, but we didn't have it before all the studies. So a lot of questions people want is it grounded in evidence? Which is a loaded question, but we do have the list of studies for each product that informed the creation of that product. And we also, you know, we have also written a letter that people can give to their vets as well that says, you know, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is what has informed, you know, our company. We're very transparent. Come back to us with questions, but here's 62 studies you can, you know, cast your eye over.
Here's the evidence.
Yeah. So, you know, this is just a select references, but, you know, go for it. And it's about kind of like bridging the gap, but also at the same time, that's knowledge sharing as well. So it's really, I guess, comes back to as much as we can permeate through education. I do believe then the products will sell, but I don't want someone to buy a product just because they saw on Instagram that someone said it was good for, you know, 5 other dogs. That doesn't work for me.
Yeah, it's coming back to again that every dog's unique, just like we're all unique, and you can't just hear one thing and just run with it. You have to, you know, apply it to the actual situation, so rather than general. So at Pet Biz Project, our sort of purpose here is also to be looking at how we're building meaningful relationships with pet parents. So rather than just looking at marketing or running a business, everything we do is about, well, how can we build greater relationships with pet parents to be able to support them in, because that has a ripple effect onto supporting their animals. What do you think is the most effective ways for APN that you sort of find that help you to build those meaningful relationships with pet parents? I know you've talked about the education side of things, but are there like specific things like blogs or videos or, you know, educational talks that you do? What have you found been the greatest impact?
I think email marketing has been, and that's something that you guys have absolutely like revolutionized for us in the sense that it's another way of sharing, or it's just a connection point with pet owners. It's not even sometimes about, there's just so many arms to email marketing that I've learned, you know, I've been trained. So there's that. I think it's about, you can't have one thing, and that's what I've learned. You know, you've got to have workshops, you might have to do a Facebook Live, you might have to do an email, you might have to do an online, you know, downloadable course or a downloadable guide, you know, or a story or a reel. Like, that's the thing. You can't just have one thing. You have to have, because everyone relates to information differently. You know, some people like it in a guide. Some people want a 2-minute video and they don't want to read that guide. So that's the biggest thing, is you can't just have your information in one way. It's about, you know, using the great resource and then turning it into like 15 different pieces of information.
Yeah, it's that. I mean, we talk about it as an asset ecosystem. It's like when you've got all that operating and you're slicing and dicing your content in different ways and different mediums and publishing it on different platforms. It's just every year we see the amount of touch points that people need to have before they know, like, and trust you and your brand and your products is just massively increasing all the time. Just where there's so much noise on the internet these days, we need to see stuff like in huge repetition to be able, before we actually really start to lean in and build a relationship and loyalty with a brand. So I think, you know, like what you do is just amazing. The content generation that you produce, you're like a marketer's dream. It's like, we're just like, because quite often it's like hugely time intensive for us coming up with content ideas, but you just have such a database, such a, you know, resource pool that it's just quality content that's easy to put out there and really put that in front of the right people at the right time, and it's what people are looking for to receive. So it's great.
But has been a struggle in the sense that we have so much. We've trying to compile it all has been my challenge. So yeah, I am lucky because I'm the kind of person that, since I started my pet journey as a pet owner before I went into the pet health industry, I write everything down and write it in a way that was palatable, because that's what you do also when you're lecturing. You got to teach people in a way that they'll remember it. And that's not easy, but that's sort of how I've sort of write down things for myself, even in cases in clinic and stuff like that. As I told you, I have a sick dog here this morning, and I said to my husband, this reminds me of a case in a clinic 4 years ago. I'm just going to put my notes up for that. He's like, okay, righto. And I'm like, no, but this is the point. Documentation is really important, because one day you'll share that with someone and it will benefit them one day.
And it is. It's just what benefits you benefits others, and it's just you can't. I see so many brands that say that they're struggling, but they're not putting anything out there over and above them just promoting their product, trying to go buy this, buy this, buy this, and it just doesn't work these days. Customers, clients, people see through it. They expect more from a pet brand. They expect it to be a source of support and long term education. It can't just be buying products. So I think it's great that you do have that mind, that researcher's mind, because it's just it's not something that you're actually having to go and work at and do. It's something that just comes naturally to you, which is amazing.
Yeah, and I can usually pull it from some file somewhere. But I do understand how pet owners feel, in the sense that a lot of the reason why, this is what I believe, we've seen this shift from owners of kind of, in a way, avoiding vet clinics and seeking information themselves, or seeking things that they can purchase off the shelf themselves, is because a 15-minute consultation just doesn't cut it. They can't have their questions answered. They don't feel like there's thoroughness there, but they do leave, with a bill, but their question's not necessarily answered. So if we're not going above and beyond that as a pet brand selling products, we're no different to what people are trying to avoid in the first place.
Yeah.
But also, it's not about separating the two. It's actually about, we need to, as pet brands selling nutraceuticals online, support that industry, because we can't do everything. They're experts for a reason. We need to actually align brands better, and that's not easy, because often brands see each other as competition. And it's like, but if we take the people out of it, and this is a big thing for us too. Yes, we're people, but behind us is animals. And that's supposed to be our MO, is supporting animals first and taking our egos out of it. And then actually what you'll find is we should have a really great collaboration, and each business will just work together harmoniously and soar. But that's actually really hard, because that's a whole another conversation around human behavior. But if we just stop sometimes and go, this is not about competition brands, because our brands in a way are actually all different. We're doing different things in different ways, and we're appealing to different parts of the pet ownership audience. But what we need to be doing is putting animals first and rebuilding collaborative relationships. And do I think we're doing that well? No, I think we have a long way to go, but we've started, and we've got some, exemplars of that. Like Will, you introduced me to Will from 5 Hounds, and you're like, this is really weird, but I'm introducing you to someone who's about to launch a pet food company as well. Do you
And
want
you
to
sell
talk?
food as well.
Yeah, and I was like, of course, and that's become a really great relationship, and we're big supporters of Will and his brand, and he's so different to what we're doing, and the messaging's so different. It's great messaging, it aligns. There's so many things that we align with, but I don't actually see Will as competition, even though we are competing in the same market. It's about, and my conversation with Will, the first 3 minutes I knew we were gonna get on, is because he said it's all about animals first, and I was like, oh my god, that's what I've been saying.
Well, that's the thing. Your values align, don't they? And that's what the important thing is.
Yeah, and it's about helping as many pet owners and animals first as possible, and we can't possibly have that much reach in every brand to just be the only brand on the market. And I don't think we should want to be a monopoly. I think we should really, hone in on what our brand's good at and go, hey, this brand's really good at that. Let's showcase those together. So that's been a really positive experience, that introduction, because we've also had some, not so great ones and that's fine, that you're not going to align with everyone. But if we can come back to the fact that not everything has to be a competition, guys, we can collaborate really well for the end goal, which is why we all started our businesses in the first place, was animals, to help animals. So that's my view on that. And I know it doesn't resonate with everyone, but that's how we've approached business and partnerships and collaborations.
Well, I do think it is starting to change. Like, I've certainly seen it more so in the last 12 to 18 months, more brands willing to collaborate and seeing it as partnership and positive rather than competition. But I agree with you. I do think we have a huge, long way to go in terms of shifting people's mindset around that, because there is more than enough pets out there for all of us to be successful in what we do. Like, that's not the problem. It's about showing up and being clear about what you stand for and attracting the right audience to you. Five Hounds and APN are very different brands, but you're aligned on values, and that's where, that's the important thing to be able to collaborate on. As you say, I think if you go out there with the mindset that you're here to do something greater than just sell products, that's when competition just goes away, because you've got such a clear vision on what you're trying to achieve that's different to everybody else.
Yeah, and I say we can learn a lot from animals, because animals just don't have
They
that
don't give
ego.
a shit, do they?
Like, just be more like animals and strip the ego back, and life will be great. So animals can teach us so many more things than just helping their health.
I 100% agree. So, Roz, can you tell us what's next for APN? What have you got coming up?
So we're headed in a few weeks to Melbourne, where first, before Melbourne, I'm going to the Integrative Vets Conference. So that's a big thing for us, because we want to just make sure all our nutrition and everything for our food, is up to date with what's happening in the industry. But then we're heading to dog lovers. So I think we're probably the first Northern Territory pet business to
Do Melbourne dog lovers.
Yeah, to Melbourne dog lovers. That sounds a bit broken, doesn't it? But we're going there. We're very excited to showcase APN, and then hopefully, meet some new pet owners, maybe meet some pet brands, just build some relationships and be a little bit more out there in the public. So I'm excited for that. But, realistically, we want to grow, but I want to do it in a way that's meaningful, that is really about building relationships with our wholesalers, so they see us as a point of, coming back and problem solving anything with us, or a referral point, or then we can refer them to specialists and, get the best outcomes for animals. So growing that wholesale aspect is a big thing. But also we have big aspirations for the education side of things. As you know, that's to come, and I think that's going to be quite a big entrance to the pet health scene, especially in Australia, because there's not much happening in that space here.
That's great. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, especially like wholesalers or people that have the same mindset around collaboration and partnerships, what's the best way for them to be able to reach you?
The best way is email, because if you call me, my voicemail is always full. But email, everything stays there in my inbox until I address it. So don't call me. I'll call you. But yeah, email me, reach out. But then I do want to chat. I'm a bit old school like that, but I like to find out about you and your brand, and why it might be a collaboration or a fit, and then we can go from there.
Fantastic. We'll put all your details in the show notes anyway, so that everybody's got easy access to your email address and can get in contact with you. Roz, thank you so much for being on the Pet Biz Project today. I've absolutely loved chatting. I could sit here all day and chat, to be honest. Very easy. But thank you so much for, all the collaboration we've done together. It's been amazing working with you, and I can't wait to see where APN goes next, and to be on the journey with you is fantastic. So thank you so much for coming on and speaking to our audience today.
No problem at all. I'm very grateful to have stumbled across you. It was the best stumble I've had.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. See you later.
See ya.
That wraps up today's episode with Dr. Roz from Australian Pet Nutrition. Hearing her journey from a frustrated pet owner to a leader in holistic pet health was inspiring, and we loved learning about her commitment to transparency, animal welfare, and ethical sourcing. Dr. Roz shared powerful takeaways about the importance of educating pet parents, the role of high-quality nutrition, and how pet brands can build trust through transparency and authenticity. If you're curious to learn more about Australian pet nutrition or want to explore Dr. Roz's products and philosophy as a wholesale partner, be sure to check out the links in our show notes. Thank you for joining us, and don't forget to subscribe to the Pet Biz Project for more expert insights and stories from leaders in the pet industry. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you in the next episode.